Hello, and thank you for listening to the Hilariously Unemployed podcast. I'm your host, Dana Duckworth, also known as the Big Speaker. My goal with this podcast is ultimately to get someone hired. I know all too well the impacts of unemployment and layoffs. My guest and I hope to provide insight and resources that will support someone in gaining their next opportunity. You can support the Hilariously Unemployed podcast and those who are impacted by unemployment by giving this podcast a 5-star review, sharing it with someone who's hiring, or someone who's hilariously unemployed. I hope that you enjoy the show and find some laughter throughout. Hello, and welcome back to the Hilariously Unemployed. I am your host and favorite opportunity seeker, Dana Duckworth, aka the Big Speaker. I'm so excited to be here with you all for another episode. Thank you so much for your continued support. Download, subscribe, give your girl 5 stars. Lord knows I need them. That's how you help support the show. This week, what's going on in Big Speaker Life? I've been very creative this week. I've been focusing on creating digital assets. It's something that makes me really happy. And a lot of my friends who have businesses have been reaching out to get me to create for them. So that's really been filling my cup this week. Of course, always in the gym because mind and body is important to me. And I'm looking so much forward to heading into this weekend because I'm going on a girls' trip. Sometimes you just need a good girls' trip to get your life back balanced. I can't wait to spend some much needed time with my great friends and have some much needed cocktails. You feel me? Well, hilarious. We are back for another episode, and I'm so excited to introduce you to my guest, Rachel Kitty Couples. She is going to be talking to us about how she's been navigating her hilarious unemployment, her fame on TikTok, what she's been doing to kind of navigate this. We'll talk all things HR, all things AI. I like to introduce her to you. She is absolutely amazing. Rachel Kitty Couples, say hello to the hilarious.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited that you're excited, and I'm so excited for our conversation. Of course, we're going to start this thing the way we always do with our guests. How long have you been hilariously unemployed, Rachel?
Just about 4 months now. It's gone by, it seems like the longest and shortest time ever, just depending on the day.
I know. That's right. So I'm a year removed from my organization, a little bit over a year removed from my layoff. And I swear sometimes it feels like it was just yesterday. And then sometimes it feels like, wow, I haven't been working for anyone else for a very long time. I miss those consistent paychecks. But entrepreneur is life, y'all, even though sometimes it can not be fun. So, like I said at the beginning, download, subscribe, give your girl 5 stars. We're trying to get this thing sponsored. All right, Rachel. So you've been out of your employment for about 4 months. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great today. I'm not going to lie. If you would have talked to me, a week and a half ago, I wasn't feeling that great. But I think, there's sort of ebbs and flows of the job seeker journey and just sort of the mental and emotional, impact it can have on those that are unemployed or even underemployed. Mm-hmm. But this week's been really great. I've been putting in my time to job search and, interview and like yourself, well, not like yourself. I'm trying to be like you. Trying to offer additional services and, project-based work just to get working, but also like I have all this experience. Why not? But I've been spent between that and the pool and the lake. It's been abnormally and consistently very hot in the Seattle area, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you spent some time in the pool.
Yes. Nice.
I wish I was as lucky to be spending time in the pool, but you said that you want to be like me, child. I want to be like you. I want to be in the pool, but I get it. Like, there are ways that people who are, I call it hilariously unemployed because it's hilarious that people with our skill sets are not employed.
Right.
Because we have all of this knowledge and this ability to do so many things. when we are in a space of not having an employer, it's like, well, I still need to do something with all these skill sets. So we
Right.
turn to either full entrepreneurship like myself, or
Mm-hmm.
fractional work, or
Yeah.
project-based work, consultancy. There's so many things that you can do outside of having that traditional 9 to 5 where you're working for someone else. Even if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, even if you just want to be able to flex those muscles and continue to use them, there are so many people that are in need of your services and your skills and your knowledge. Even if you're just sharing that knowledge, like,
Absolutely.
that's what I feel we do most of the time here on this show to help people. Is just, it is a tool, it is a resource.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I I've talked to so many people that are very successful, entrepreneurs, CHROs, heads of recruiting, for other organizations. And I know that I shouldn't say, well, I want to do fractional. I want to do, but I'm also looking for full time because I'm told it makes me sound a little flaky or wishy-washy. But really, at the end of the day, I don't know why I can't do both.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing. I'm job searching and I'm also client searching.
Yeah. So the conversations become, can we have it all?
Yeah.
Can I have my job and can I also have my business, especially if
Right.
it's one that's passion led? I know if I do get in a position to have to take another role, then
Mhm.
I'm not going to stop being the big speaker. I'm not.
No, we need you.
Well, I'm glad somebody does, child. I'm not going to stop using my voice to highlight people who are in situations or marginalized or
Right.
need me to be here to speak up for them. So, whatever organization it is going to have to understand that I come with a brand. I will work really hard for you, but I will work even harder for myself. So, it does put us in a situation of, it's like, does it have to be this or that? But I
Right.
think we can have it all, Rachel. And I hope
I do
that you
too. I do
have it all.
too.
So let's go back to how
Yeah.
your career journey even started. Take us to your early days
Oh
and what
gosh.
career was like for you when you first joined the mighty workforce.
Well, we could go way, way back, but I hopped around a lot early, in my career. I was a barista, I was a bartender, um, did customer success, inside sales, all sorts of, types of customer focused or people focused roles, really, whether you're looking, at the type of work. It was always around people.
Mhm.
But how I got into where I am today, is it started with an inside sales manager role for a software company.
Mhm.
Um, and they happen to own a staffing agency. So I had the opportunity to spend about 3 years leading their inside sales, and then towards the end, customer success of my time there. And I really enjoyed it, but I loved sort of popping my head in on what's going on the staffing side and the staffing business,
Yeah.
and decided, why not dip my toe in? I was selling a product that helped people with staffing, so why not learn recruiting and the agency side. So my first role, I had never recruited a day in my life.
Mhm.
I had hired, I had been a hiring manager and a people leader, but I became the branch manager of a staffing agency here in Washington, and I was now managing people that had been recruiting for years, or in staffing for years without that
Mhm.
experience. But what I did have was the other side of it, the customer side, um, and I guess just the people side. So I was very fortunate. It was the hardest year of my life.
Mhm.
I'm just going to be honest. But that year really set my entire career in recruiting and sourcing up. And if it weren't for sort of, I hate to cliche, like blood, sweat, and tears, that I went through,
Yeah.
I it definitely set up my career for where I am today. So I'm super grateful for that.
So you kind of transitioned from a role where you were selling a product to
Right.
now you are in a position to market people and also market the organization.
Right.
What was that switch like for you to go from product to people?
That's a really great question. And this has been a while ago. So, you know, but what I can tell, I'm a lifelong learner. So, you know, I think you could give that same experience to somebody else and they're going to, you know, they're going to have a different experience. But for me, it was, I needed to learn the ins and outs of what it was like because I'm now managing a staffing agency that does like 3/4 of their work is temporary or temp to hire positions. You know, the rest of it was like permanent placements and more like strategic type leadership roles. But I had to learn a different way of dealing with like the public. Or, you know, people walking in. This was back in the day, you know, we would have big job fairs and, you know, people would be lined up around our office building to come in to try and get work. And while at that time, I never struggled to fill,
Right.
a record and order. What I learned was what was different was the human aspect of being a job seeker, you know. I learned like my privilege and how fortunate I was to have the support system around me and I hadn't really had struggled to find work in the past. And so it opened my eyes. I guess that's how it changed me and led me to where I am today is seeing all of I'm trying to get the right words here, but like just the disparity in different, you know, demographics of people, working in an area that I didn't live in. It gave me a better point of view outside of my own lenses. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm speaking too vaguely, but it really opened my eyes to the struggles of a job seeker, you know, and that's sort of been the foundation of my career. It helped me understand, you know, working with, you know, people from different cultures and different backgrounds. I hadn't really had that opportunity before. And it's the best thing that ever happened to me, honestly. At the time, I would have, you know, I remember crying in my car the day that I left that company, not because I was sad, but it was honestly out of relief because I was putting in 75, 80 hours a week and a single mom at the time, you know, and it just, but it's what I needed, you know, to launch my career. So I'm grateful for that.
Wow, 75, 80 hours.
It was, and that's not exaggerating. I mean, it was because I was the branch manager, but I was also responsible for payroll. You know, we were working on like a DOS-based system for any other recruiters who, you know, may have never had to do that. And time cards were coming in, especially we had some large clients that had, you know, it was seasonal work. And we'd have, you know, 200-300 people on assignment at one customer and their handwritten time cards, you know, and I was like literally going through and doing the payroll on top of everything else. So I'm grateful for where technology has taken us with, you know, applicant tracking systems, HRIS systems, things like that today. But yeah, it was a lot of work. That's for sure.
Shout out to tech for not having people handwritten time cards any longer because that sounds like a stressor. Okay, so you transfer your skill set from sales of a product to now working with people, recruiting them, and helping them kind of get ready for positions that you are going to be placing them in. Right. What are some of the things that you would say really helped you translate the skills of sales, right? Into now the skills of helping a candidate shape their story?
That's a great question. You know, one of the reasons that I was looking to leave sales altogether was that I was an exceptional salesperson, but I had to believe in the product and it had to help somebody, you know, and I realized when I looked back throughout my, you know, the sales portion of my career that I didn't really get that, like, you know, I liked the checks, but I didn't have that like internal satisfaction. And this is, I guess, right around when I look back, this was a pivotal time in my life because this is where I realized that I am more mission driven as me as a human. And because of that, I needed to find work, you know, in the moment, I didn't know that, but looking back, I realized that that's what was happening. For me, it really was my ability to sort of just talk, the gift to gab. A quick story, a handful of people know this. Like my first year in kindergarten, I didn't really talk a lot. I did really well, excuse me, in school, but they were worried about my ability to have social skills. So I redid kindergarten. And it's kind of a joke, in my family, like, gosh, we shouldn't have held Rachel back for her social skills because now she won't shut up. but, but, I don't know. I guess I was born with just the ability, and I grew up around people with the ability to talk to people. And I know that it seems so simple, it almost sounds like, gosh, I should be telling you something else.
No,
That's just really what it is. Because while I am chatty, I also listen. So
yeah.
I just think those two skills are so underrated in every aspect of business. The ability to speak to people no matter, and meet them where they are, but also just to be a good and active listener.
Yeah, like being able to talk to people is a skill and a gift. Like being able to craft your thoughts in a way that people can receive them and receive them as help or a resource. It is truly a skill. And like they say, that you have your hard skills, your more technical things, but those soft skills are really what can make a person, find their mission or find that hard work, like I say, because if it wasn't for my gift of gab, I wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things that I do. I probably will be in a completely different lane than I am, but I'm thankful for my voice and my ability to share my messages with people. So being talkative is a skill, y'all.
Yes.
Just in case you didn't know.
Well, and I just want to say at the time I didn't know that I had ADHD, and I'm a full grown, woman at this point, I'm like, but now that I know that I have ADHD, I can look back and go, the reason I survived, and I say survived because I was exhausted, but the reason I survived that year and I think was able to really, just sort of be a sponge and soak it all up. I learned so much that year. Is because of my ADHD, because I can pivot, because I can consider a bazillion things at one time, this little data processor of a mind.
Yeah.
It makes me different, but I think a lot of recruiters have ADHD, quite honestly. So
Listen,
all the ones that almost every recruiter that I know, personally and well does. So
it's really what I say a superpower. I have ADHD also. So I'd like us to talk about that a little bit because I was diagnosed later in life, in my 30s. And once I kind of figured it out, I was like, this makes so much sense
yes.
now. Just my inability to focus or my ability to procrastinate, but create something so amazing from the procrastination. It's like, she's not going to do it right now, but when she does it, it's going to be amazing.
Yes.
Starting different projects and just people are like, you're always doing something. It's like, because my brain just wants to get into things and it's not trouble. It just wants to get into different areas. And ADHD is not diagnosed in girls as often as it is in boys, because typically theirs will present in hyperactivity when they're a lot younger, but ours does not present that way. So Rachel, what was kind of your story or how you uncovered you too have ADHD, and what has that been like for you?
Yeah, I, like you, didn't get diagnosed with ADHD until my 30s. And quite honestly, it was, talk about that first, branch manager job that I had, my first staffing agency experience. It was right after I left there that I started going through the process to get diagnosed. I didn't know that's the process I was going through, but that's where we landed. For me, and then to add an additional layer, in my early 40s, I was diagnosed with autism, which, through media and just, other people's perceptions, we all grow up and are conditioned often to think certain things that aren't always necessarily true, or, are really biased, or just, misinformed information. And I, both times with ADHD and with autism, and I was diagnosed a decade apart from each other almost. I had a little bit of denial because I'm like, I'm not these things, because I thought the same thing. I'm not running around, and causing havoc. I'm not hyperactive by any means. But what I learned is that my brain is.
Yeah, it doesn't cut off. There's no closing
time. And then the same thing with autism. It's like, well, I worked for a nonprofit and worked very closely with other people with autism, and, was around children and adults with all types of disabilities, and just folks that are neurodivergent, and, almost every way you can think of. And I was in denial. I'm like, this is not, it kind of makes sense, but no, not me. And that's when I learned that, no one, through research, I learned more about myself and found out that it's just been I think less than 15 years now that mental health providers were ever even considering diagnosing someone with a dual diagnosis of ADHD and autism.
Yeah.
Because they're two very different diagnoses. So I'm always, joking around about now how it makes so much sense, because I have two things that are constantly contradicting each other. And that's all in, it's how my brain works. So to get back to your original question, though, with the ADHD to start, it was just eye-opening. It was like, it reminds me when I was, it was the year between the 3rd and 4th grade, when my stepmom took me to go get my eyes checked, and it was like, oh, you need to get glasses. And the day we went back to go pick up my glasses, they were ready. And I remember sitting in the back seat with my new glasses on, feeling all, sassy. I was so excited with my purple, purple frames. And, but I remember seeing, so funny sounding, I don't know, but like looking at the trees and seeing, I did not realize that, like, sort of these green blurry blobs, I knew they were trees. I could see good enough.
Yeah.
But the world was so clear to me, just looking out the window, the back seat of my stepmom's car, and that's exactly what it was like to learn about ADHD and to have it didn't change that diagnosis, autism, ADHD, none of that changed who I am today. Like, I've always been this girl, right? But it helped me understand myself more. And quite honestly, what it's done for me is help me advocate for myself, help me explain to other neurotypical people, not only how to support me, but like why I am the way I am. Like, no, I'm not lazy. No, I am not, trying to be difficult. I'm not interrogating you. I'm just really curious and want to know everything, And so I think that's kind of why full circle now today, being a recruiter makes so much sense for who I am. Rachel Kitty Couples, like, I love to learn. So, and every person is different. So, every phone call that I have with a candidate, or every intake meeting with a hiring manager, every project I work on, I'm always learning something new. So that's why this career track, I think for me, it fuels me. As long as I'm balancing my life, I'm not getting burnt out. And I get that fuel every day with more information.
Yeah, because you're constantly learning from people and hearing new experiences and new stories. And we love a good story.
I do. I love stories.
I would say the same way, like, just not that knowing that you have ADHD is going to change anything for you.
Absolutely.
But it does help you, like, kind of put things together. Like, oh, this makes sense because, I get it now. I can explain that a little bit better to someone who doesn't think the way that I do, because now I understand that maybe my way of doing things or my way of seeing and being is not the same way that they are. So it really has helped me being able to identify that, like, hey, maybe this is that trait, or maybe it just is a day where I just don't want to do things and I want to procrastinate. But 9 times out of 10, it's my little ADHD telling me, don't do it right now. Wait until the hour before and you will be able to kill it. So,
Yeah. Well, to add to it, another thing, and I don't know if you've had this experience for yourself, but for me also, it helped me identify and understand myself. But then from there, once I did, I was able to start, okay, what are the tools that Rachel needs to
yeah.
be more successful? Like, I'm a huge Wonder Woman fan, but like, how do I lasso, all of this and turn it into something that makes sense to Rachel? ADHD isn't a learning disability, but it is a processing difference,
Yeah.
and so, once I understood it, and it took a few years, honestly, after my diagnosis to really, fully wrap my arms around what it was and how I could, again, advocate, but just support myself in being more successful, and I got a paper calendar on the wall. I've got, several digital calendars. I've got, a planner that might be really annoying and chaotic to someone, who isn't me. But for me, I can't help it. I have time blindness. So if you want me to show up for something, like, don't judge how many times I write it down or, my organizational process,
If it's not
so,
on my calendar, it is not going to happen. My
oh,
brain
I
does
know.
not even think about it.
I don't even know how people do that. I've never, because my brain's never worked that way. Like, people remember last Tuesday, they promised, something they're going to do next week. And I'm like, that would have been gone by now.
Yeah, I'm so thankful for like these tools. So one, my Google Calendar is life, and then
Yes.
AI recordings that you can add to your meetings
Yep.
to be able to go back. So I'm like, we talked about what in that meeting? I have no clue. And getting the transcripts is very, very helpful to me, because in the moment when we're talking about it, like, I am all in, I'm passionate, I've got all these ideas. But as soon as I log off, it's like, huh?
Exactly.
What did we just talk about? What do I need to do? So, like, I either take notes seriously, or I use one of those AI recorders to join my meetings. Also, shadow working helps me.
Yes.
I have a friend who too has ADHD. And sometimes we'll just be on Zoom and we'll be doing completely different work. She'll be at her job and I'll be here in my office just working on different projects, but it just helps to know that somebody else is being productive. And then lo-fi music is also very helpful for me when I have to lock in and get something done. It just is kind of calming and soothing, and I'm not trying to understand any lyrics or listen to any of that. It's really just the tones of the sounds that kind of soothe me and allow me to work harder. So once you kind of learn your bag of tricks or the things that you need, it's a lot easier to navigate, but it still is a journey.
It is. And it doesn't, like, all these tools, I think, again, how could somebody that's neurotypical truly ever understand, right? They don't have, my brain, but I'm always going to have ADHD and autism. There's always going to be things, but if you look at my career and, like, if the day that I was diagnosed with, with ADHD, you can literally see where my career trajectory took off. And it wasn't because, oh, you have ADHD. I always had it.
Yeah.
It's because I started to understand myself and was able to, again, advocate for myself and show up for myself in a way that, allowed others to really see that, no, I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm not lazy. I'm not, aloof. I just process information different. That's it.
When I got really good at sales, it was because we were required to use a CRM, and we were required to schedule follow-ups in there, and also to take notes from each interaction that we had with our customers. So I would have the longest detailed notes because it would help me, and it was a tool for me to really get better at sales and do a lot better at work. So I think the CRM saved me with some of those roles for sure.
Yeah, I actually have been talking with uh, a HR leader at another company about she's frustrated about like their database
Mm-hmm.
and how their ATS specifically, like there's a ton of data that's reporting, but it's not accurate, and the recruiters aren't using the system the same way. You know, it's a hot mess. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I would love to help you fix this. Because like I like you, like I back in the day had letters of recommendation for just, how organized and detailed that I can be. But
Mm-hmm.
that's not typically what you hear about people with ADHD, you know?
Yeah.
But when we have the right tools, like you said,
Mhm.
um, I mean, that's all we are. We have to be that way to survive.
We definitely do. Now, let's pivot to talking
Yeah.
about LinkedIn because that's how we got
Oh,
connected.
yeah.
You are my connection on LinkedIn.
Yes.
How did you find out about Hilariously Unemployed?
Oh, goodness. So the irony is that I connected with another recruiter,
Mm-hmm.
like just within a week or so of you. You interviewed her on your podcast here,
Mm-hmm.
probably a week or so before that interview came out. And I listened to it, and then I, sent her a note saying, how great it was. And it turns out she's in Washington State as well.
Yeah. Yes.
um, and yeah, and she told me, she's like, you should sign up for this. And that's just literally what happened. And I think I started following you before she and I had that conversation, because I thought, well,
Mhm.
this is a podcast I want to listen to. And just after, reading, a little internet stalking on you, I was like, oh, she's one of my people. I mean, this is someone I want to be connected to and part of my community. So I didn't know for sure if I'd ever be on your podcast, but I was so grateful when I heard back from you.
Oh man, well, we hit it off, and your story is definitely one that I wanted to tell. Our discovery call was the one that was really helpful for me. Uh, like
Yeah.
if you get on a discovery call and we don't laugh, or I'm like, yes, me too, like I understand that, or that would be so great, then
Yeah,
it may not be a fit, and that's okay. I'm probably going to have other podcasts in the future, but for Hilariously
absolutely.
Unemployed, like we need to laugh, and we also need to provide some resources to the
Right.
other people who are in the community, our community of hilarious. So I'm so glad you listened to the episode and that you reached out, because this has been great. But I want to talk a little bit about how you really got, because you have quite a following on LinkedIn yourself, how you kind of got so involved in LinkedIn early on, and
Yeah.
also got a company involved in LinkedIn pretty early on.
Yeah. So when I talked about that, when I pivot into staffing and recruiting, right? Before that, I was working for a SaaS company selling labor management software
Mm-hmm.
into large distribution centers. And it was LinkedIn had been out for a few years at this point, but I was hired specifically to take like their inside sales was more like telemarketers, really,
Mm-hmm.
and they weren't approaching uh, sales into business, the way that the world had evolved. There
Mm-hmm.
was LinkedIn. It's funny, I have one of the letters of recommendation. It's attached to the company. They're called Easy Metrics.
Mm-hmm.
But the CEO and co-founder wrote me this beautiful letter of recommendation when I left. And one of the things that he talks about is how I introduced them to using LinkedIn to prospect and
Mm-hmm.
find customers. And it's silly today because I'm not the first person to ever do it.
No, but it's like pivotal
But
in
it's
that.
what I did. And it turned around, gosh, it in I don't even think it was a year. That was a huge I can't remember the numbers, but we definitely turned around like the amount of demos of our software, and not just the amount of demos, but the close ratio. So I don't know how they're doing today or what they got going on, but it was a really a fun time in my career, and learned a lot about distribution and third party logistics and things like that so that I could sell into them.
Yeah.
But the biggest takeaway from that was I didn't know what I was doing. And I just went in there and fumbled around and started watching what other people were doing and was able to turn it into their, I guess, their prospecting process.
It's a great thing for people like us, just like, I don't know, but I'll try it and see what I can.
Yeah, well, and we're well over a decade past. I mean, we're getting closer to 2, I think. But from that time. But yeah, I'm grateful for that opportunity, and some of the things that I learned during that time. I still use that stuff today. So
Yeah. Yeah. Any tips you want to give to people in sales role or just people who navigate LinkedIn in general?
yeah, here's a tip. I'm not being sarcastic, but one, and this is not just sales. Anytime you're trying to do anything, if you send a request to link with someone,
Mm-hmm.
if your intention is to sell them or to get some information from them, tell them in the request. And I say this because there's a tactic that a lot of people use. It's still today, which
Mm-hmm.
is send a request and then you accept people, someone like me who's an open networker, and then you get hit 5, 10, 15 minutes later with a
Yeah.
sales pitch.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to accept people. I'm an open networker, but just, I don't know. It's so off-putting. But if someone hits me up in the initial request, I don't know, it makes me want to at least reply. So take that for what it's worth. But if you're, and if you're a recruiter trying to reach out to, a potential, candidate or someone you may, want to become a candidate, send them a note, not
Yeah.
just a request. And,
Yeah, I too am like, oh yeah, people want to join my network. Come on in. And then when I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the person trying to sell me something. And it's like, I'm not even in a position to buy what you're selling. So
right. But you might, if the way I look at it is that I'm a people connector. I might not be in the position or even have a need for what you're selling, but I might know somebody who is. So just hit me up just be transparent. Otherwise it feels a little shady, I don't know.
well, I want to talk about what actually transpired to make you hilariously unemployed. Can we talk a bit about your last role and how you are hilariously
Yeah.
unemployed now?
Well, I spent a little over 2 years working for a company called Textio. I joke and say the reason that I went to Textio is because they let me do whatever I wanted. And that's just not the case. It just turned out that the vision, and mission of the organization, and shout out to Jackie Clayton, and Jackie Clayton, the head the VP of DEIB and talent acquisition, aligned, right? I didn't actually get to do whatever I wanted, but I got to do the type of work that I've always wanted to do. So I'd been recruiting, but I, throw out some not so great buzzwords, but I didn't always have the bandwidth or the support or the staff around me to
Yeah.
do everything. I've kept this book throughout my recruiting career that I think I'm on like book 4 now, but it's just a notebook, and I call them my book of dreams. It's all the things like, if I had a limited budget, if I had unlimited time, or whatever resource, I want to try to do this because I think this is going to do this. And Textio is quite honestly the first organization where I was able to check off. I almost went through half of a little journal notebook type thing, and able to check off all the things. So they understood the importance of candidate experience, and understood workload, which a lot of recruiters are just overloaded with requisitions. And I was able to really take my time to not only source and find, quality candidates, but I was able to also wait and present a slate of candidates that was not only qualified, but, extremely diverse. And it just, I don't know. I'm losing a track of thought here. This ADHD is kicking in here, but I'll tell you, one of my favorite things about working for that organization was that I was not just given permission, but I was supported in my efforts to creating like truly a world-class candidate experience for candidates there. And I'm not just saying, like, I've won awards for it. I've been recognized for it. I've and that stuff is all great and wonderful, but if you can talk to anybody in my network, that went, like any candidate or prospect that went through my desk during my time at Textio, like
Mhm.
I really was able to support them through the process.
That's awesome. And it's like, no, don't be shy about your accolades and the things that you are able to do. There's so much that you can do when you have the right people around you.
And who just get it. Because,
Yeah.
in the work that I'm going to say we do, right? Like this people, focus, people-centric work, like
Mhm.
when you are given permission to slow down a little bit,
Yeah.
honestly, in the end, you end up you can finish first. I forget, I just saw a clip on, on, I think it was on TikTok, maybe it was on IG, but it was a race, it
Mhm.
was a track meet. And I forget gosh, I could remember the lady's name, but she lost her shoe
Mhm.
off the starting block, put her shoe back on, caught up with everybody, and she won the race.
Mhm.
And so I'm always, whenever I'm giving advice, whether it's to recruiters, or talking to hiring managers specifically, like, I know you need somebody right now, but let's slow down and get this right,
Yeah.
because we're going to be 10 miles further than if we rush it right now. So
Yeah.
that's another little nugget. It's okay to slow down sometimes. And when you're the most stressed out and think you need to go the fastest, that is always the time to just take a beat and make
Yeah.
sure you're not being reactionary,
Yeah. But you're gonna just have to redo the process in 6
Right.
months to a year if
And
it doesn't
with
work out.
hiring, like, let's think about retention too. Sure, we could put,
Mhm.
I hate that whole, hate's a strong word, but I strongly dislike the butts and seats kind of mentality. Like, I just need somebody. No, you don't just need somebody.
You
What do
need
you
the
need?
right person.
Because otherwise, we're going to be filling this role over and over again and causing trauma to people that we're hiring, and trauma within the organization.
So you mentioned TikTok.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how you've been using TikTok to kind of support yourself and others through your hilarious unemployment.
Well, and I think you said something at the beginning of the show here about, my TikTok. I'm just under 10,000 followers. I'm trying to
That's
get
a
to 10.
lot on TikTok.
Well, I don't know. I guess I'm always looking at the people that have like 6 million or something. But
I have
um,
100. Okay, it is a lot on TikTok.
no, I'm very grateful for my following. Anyone who wants to follow me, I am trying to get to 10,000. So we were talking about tools earlier, so that
Mhm.
I can organize my content into albums. That way folks can figure out, are you coming to me for quick tips for job seekers or
Yeah.
hiring teams? Are you coming for the funny stuff?
Mhm.
Are you coming for, specific, not just quick tips, but like, learning opportunities, whatever it is. So please follow me on TikTok at recruiting SHERO 2.0. But sorry, I just totally gave myself a plug there.
No, you should.
But
This is
TikTok's
what this
been
show is
great.
for.
It's really been great. I'm not great. I I am not a digital artist. I am not gosh, as far as, creating videos and things like that, like, I'm
Mhm.
just messing around and trying stuff.
Yeah.
I think my daughter thinks a lot of my stuff's a little cringy. And you know what? I look back at some of it, I'm like, it is, but people don't mind it I think if you're being real on there,
Yeah, if it's you
there's an audience for all of us.
literally.
But what I've noticed on TikTok, is that the people that are most successful are the people that are authentic and the people that are themselves. And if they're selling a product, they're selling a product. But when you show up as you are, um, people will gravitate. It takes time. This is my second TikTok account. It's a much slower build. I had an account before and it got banned, but
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, how does a recruiter get banned on TikTok? But
Do not know Rachel Kitty Couples. How does it?
well, but I'm back, and yeah, I'm really enjoying my time on there. I've been honestly slacking a bit lately because I've been putting, all of my creative effort into my own job search and looking for, some project clients and whatnot. But I definitely have a plan actually starting in August. I've already mapped it out because, you got to map it out and plan it. And
Yeah.
some new content will be starting August 1st.
Well, I'm excited to watch your new content. Now, I cannot let you leave this show without telling me and the audience your very interesting job search and what the interview process has been like for you, and a little lesson on research.
Absolutely. My job search journey, and sometimes I wonder if it's because I'm a recruiter and I know, and I'm doing air quotes now, but like how it's supposed to go.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost, I feel like maybe it makes it a little more frustrating. But it also makes it, I'm a little more empathetic to recruiters and hiring managers because I know, what it's like behind the scenes when you're trying to hire. But it's been rough. I mean, I was one of many that was job searching in 2020 and ghost. I wrote a blog post about it, I think in 2021 about like what not to say to job seekers. And it was a blog post directed towards recruiters and hiring managers just based on everything that I went through in 2020. Here we are in 2024, and I can tell you I have been ghosted more in this 3 to 4 month job search period than I was in the 6-7 months that I was unemployed in 2020. And I've also just experienced, I don't know, it seems like a bit of a decline in just general candidate experience. I'm not sure what it is. I don't like the job seekers and hiring managers and recruiters were always all pitted against each other. I like that. I try to see it from both sides. I think there's a lot of recruiters right now that are in roles that just require way too much of them.
Sure.
And there's a lot of organizations that have made decisions to cut their teams down, as well as introducing AI, which I think I'm a big supporter of AI if used ethically and used as a support tool. But when you're dealing with human interaction, especially employment, it's a very personal time.
Yeah.
You definitely can use AI tools. Like I'm all for it, but you still have to have that human touch, that human interaction, because until everyone in the world thinks alike, has the same resume format, same knowledge, this will never happen. You need that human in between to help sort through the humanness of it.
I'm a huge proponent of the AI as a tool and not a replacement.
Right. And
can we talk a little bit about Glassdoor?
Yeah, the research side. Yes, I was getting to that. I think, also as a recruiter, I know, like I literally, I think I have, Instagram video, there's reels with me talking about the importance of researching an organization, not just to understand whether they're a great fit for you, but so you can get through the interview process. But it's easy to give advice, but to take your own advice can be tough, but I got through just one example. This is a Glassdoor example where I went through the entire interview process with an organization, and there were some yellow flags popping up for me when I say something's a yellow flag, it's like something I need to look into, but it's not necessarily, a bad thing. But it's like, no, I'm just going to pay attention or ask more questions about that. And I'm, taking notes or asking those follow-up questions. But towards the end, some red flags started popping up. And after, what's about a month, I think was the process, I decided to go to Glassdoor. Because I didn't know where else to get information. And as a recruiter, I've always, you take Glassdoor, like organizations usually encourage people to leave a review within the first, 90, 120 days of employment. And those are usually very positive. And then folks tend to leave reviews if they get a promotion or demotion, or they're put on a PIP, or something negative is happening, or they've left. And there's always a gift and feedback, even even if it may be exaggerated positive or exaggerated negative, there's always a nugget in there. And yeah, I'm just kicking myself again. I shouldn't do that for not checking on this company sooner, but I could not believe what was in these Glassdoor reviews. And my suggestion is, if you're going to go to like Indeed or Glassdoor and you really want to look into an organization, make sure you're reading it in a chronological order, not just, voted the best or, most interacted with, because you can see patterns, right? Like, I did this before I went to Textio, and quite honestly, they went through some growth spurts and some downturns, like in the course of their 10 years or whatever it was at the time that I was looking into them. Yeah. But I could see a pattern where they were really making an effort, and not just saying it. They were really making an effort to improve their processes and leadership, and their CEO was personally responding, to each person. And then I got a chance to work there and see that wasn't just an outwardly, that wasn't just frosting. It's who they are, Yeah. I got into, again, I was about a month into the process, getting close to what I believe is an offer. Just wasn't feeling right about it. And then I went to Glassdoor, clicked it in chronological order, and I was seeing things like, a pizza party, accolades, all the things that you hear joked about, you see on LinkedIn all the time, like, people posting pictures of things they did for different holidays or celebration months. But it's like, okay, that's great, they're doing that, but how are they really acting internally, and so I take those types of things with a grain of salt. But what really got me were the multiple accusations of sex trafficking and drug manufacturing, like illegal drug manufacturing. And my eyes were just like, what? Never in my entire career has the topic of sex trafficking come up related to an organization or hiring somebody, and it is a very serious and awful epidemic all over the world. But specifically, my experience here in the United States, it's a big deal here, and it doesn't get talked about enough. But that was a big red flag for me, and that's not even why I went to Glassdoor. So I don't know. We could talk about this topic for an hour, but had I done my research, at least after my first call with them, I probably would have approached, the interview process with them differently and asked a different, set of questions along the way.
Absolutely. Folks, you heard it here from the recruiting SHERO. Do your research.
Yes.
Glassdoor and look at those in chronological order, not whoever gave 5 stars first. That's an amazing lesson to learn, Rachel. We're all learning and still growing in this space. So thank you so much for being so candid with myself and my audience today. Before we wrap up, I'd love for you to tell anyone who is looking to hire you or connect with you where they can find you and how they can best support you.
Yes, thank you so much. recruitingshero.com. That's my website. My blog sits there. Links to LinkedIn, any social platform that I'm on, as well as I have a new services inquiry tab for, if you're looking to hire someone fractionally or project-based, and you can fill out a little form on there to tell me what you're looking for, and I'll get right back to you. But yeah, recruitingshero.com. I apologize. Go ahead. No, I'm just saying I'm open to full-time, recruiting and candidate experience related roles, and as well as projects. I'd love to talk to anyone that's interested in a diversity focused recruiter.
All right, folks, y'all heard it. Network, do your thing. If you know anyone who is looking for recruiting SHERO in their organization, I've got one for you. That's Miss Rachel Kitty Couples. Rachel, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this episode. You have truly been insightful. It's been great to chat with you specifically about ADHD and getting diagnosed so late in our lives, but how we've managed to navigate that. I hope hearing from us in regards to that, because mental health is so important to me, along with physical health, because I'm fine. And y'all know I stay in that gym now. But I'm really excited that we were able to share some of that here, because I don't think those conversations are had enough, specifically in the workplace or in the corporate landscape. I can't thank you all enough for continuing to listen to this show. But like I always say, download, subscribe, give your girl 5 stars. Lord knows I need them. And if you would like to sponsor an episode, you know where to find me. It's at Speak Up Dana, speakupdana.com. Dana Duckworth, the black one in the yellow suit, on LinkedIn. And you can find the show anywhere you get your pod on. That is YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Rachel, thank you so much. It's been real hilarious. I'm logging out for now, but see you next time. Bye.